Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today we've got the brand new tier list for the new patch. I've been requested to do this for a few days now. People have been bombarding me with, yo Hera, what's the best tips of a new patch? When's the new tier list dropping? Everyone is so eager to see this and I completely understand why. So much has changed with this new patch and this tier list will really define what we play for the next basically years, because the infantry changes that just took place, as well as some of the other balance changes, definitely impact what we'll be playing for months and years to come on the rank ladder and in tournaments alike. This tier list will be for 1v1 Arabia on the new patch. It's what I've played the most. I did want to bring it out earlier because I needed time for me and for myself to test out the civs on the rank ladder to see what's good, what's viable, to get a feel for how things are. And let me just tell you, this tier list will be unlike anything you've ever seen before. Literally unlike anything you've ever seen before because of how good the new changes are. I got my water. We're going to be ready to do this tier list. Strap in, guys. It's going to be a longer video, but I'm going to really break down every single civilization and rank it on our 5 categories. So you got S being OP, A being strong, B is viable, C is subpar, and D is bad. This category will only be reserved for the civs that are actually like really bad and that basically have no proper playability, which will be very little. I wouldn't be surprised if we have 0 civs in this category for this list. Balance is super good right now. And with all that said, let's go ahead and start. We're going to go alphabetical order. We got the names and the civ icons. This will not include the new civilizations because they're not out yet, so we can't test them. All right. So with all that said, let's go ahead and hop right in. Starting off with Armenians. Armenians were always one of those weaker civs that had a good economy. So good economy, kind of like Vikings, but they always had like a weaker late game and, not the best units in general. But now because infantry got buffed, I would actually say this is going to be landing a spot in the B tier. Still not the craziest civ ever, but I would say it's probably going to land in upper B tier just because I feel like it has such a good economy in the early game, has a solid unique unit, and the champions are really strong now. I made a video on YouTube about the 100 HP champions and, just the gameplay. And they felt insane in late game because champions got a movement speed buff. They're easier to get to. The upgrades are cheaper. They got an extra attack. There's so many reasons why champions are just better in late game. You might argue that there's no supplies now. So, champions are costing an extra 5 food in late game. But that's nowhere near, a downside compared to the benefits they got. For me, Armenians are definitely B tier. Very fun civ, and I think it rewards you the more you play it. So if you're a bad Armenians player, you're not going to play as good as someone who actually plays the civ properly and plays the civ a lot. It's a harder civ to play. Next up, we have Aztecs. Aztecs have always been close to the top of my rankings, but then recently they kind of dropped down a little bit. But on the latest patch, they got buffed again in such a good way. They now have really strong Aztec Jags. Their Eagle Warrior play got buffed. The Eagles create faster. This is a buff not for Aztecs, but for all the mesocivs. And also their monks can now go up to 100 HP, a small minor buff, but still, hey, not too bad if you get devotion. So Aztecs have been on the receiving end of quite a few buffs lately, but most notably the Jaguar Warriors getting a ton of attack. That's like the focus of this buff. But also, in the context of men-at-arms being strong and infantry early game being strong, mesocivs get a lot better because they don't have the option to scout rush. So if scout rush is really good and men-at-arms are bad, like last patch, mesocivs go down in value. But when men-at-arms rush is strong and infantry play in general is strong, mesocivs go up in value. I'm going to be conservative and put the Aztecs in A tier. I wouldn't be surprised if in lower elo they become S tier though, because Jaguar Warriors in lower elo will be really hard to stop. I'm warning you right now. If you're a beginner player looking to pick up a civ right now, highly recommend the Aztecs. They're so good, easy to come up with a game plan, easy to execute that game plan. And the only thing you have to work around is just not having cavalry, which is not that big of a deal. So Aztecs for me, strong A tier across all elos, lower elos for beginners, S tier because I think the Jags will be really strong and hard to deal with. Next up, we got the Bengalis. In my opinion, Bengalis is probably one of the biggest losers of the patch, just because I feel like it didn't really get anything, and like the Elephant Archer changes, it like doesn't really matter for most 1v1 games. I feel it makes it even harder to get the Elephant Archers if anything in late game, but I still don't think it's a bad civ. So I'm going to put it in subpar. What I would say for Bengalis is you probably have to play a very defensive opening to just survive the rush coming in from the men-at-arms. I think the Wraths got nerfed slightly on the last patch as well. I'm a bit hazy on what happened to Bengalis. But the civ feels overall okay. Like it's solid-ish, but it just doesn't feel that special. I don't like opening men-at-arms with the Civ because you get the 2 vills in feudal, sure, but you don't necessarily get more economy in early feudal. So I like playing more like fast feudal with archers and scouts and trying to defend against men-at-arms. Really the biggest problem with Bengalis is just lacking good units in Castlage. Like, you have good units, but they're awkward to get to. They're like elephant archers, Ratha. You don't have knights, you can't really go there. Your archers don't have thumb ring, you don't have CA. So you're just like lacking units a lot of the time. So it's an awkward Civ, but it's still like somewhat viable, but not viable enough to be in the B tier. It's a little subpar. Next up, we got the Berbers. Again, one of the losers of the new patch, just because infantry early game and infantry openings do really well against the Berbers. So I would probably put Berbers in the subpar category as well. I'm not sure exactly where I'd place them, but probably even behind Bengalis. Berbers is really not the best 1v1 Civ at the moment. Just simply put, because you're going to be pressured really hard by men-at-arms. And your Civ in general does not do that well in early game men-at-arm fights. The only saving grace you have is that your villagers move a bit faster. So actually, maybe because of that, I'll bump them to C tier. Your villas will be moving fast enough to where you can, I don't know if you can outrun the men-at-arm, but you can at least kind of like move away from the men-at-arm so you don't take too much damage. But besides that, Berbers really don't have that much in the early game and mid game. And in the late game, if you get there, very strong. Their mid game is also decent with the cavalry, so it's still, again, very playable. It's just that it's not something I'm going to be recommending, because I believe that men-at-arm opening and infantry opening in general will be the most popular and probably the overall strongest. I don't think it's overpowered to the point where Berbers can never compete, but I think you have to play a very smart and very defensive opening with Berbers to even have a chance. That's my read of the situation. Or you just play men-at-arms yourself and then hope to like trade them off and then play a slower game after that. That could be another approach with the Berbers that could work. But overall, it's not going to be the Civ that's going to be pressuring out the get-go and, you know, be very strong in the new patch. Last thing I'll say about it, I've spent a lot of time here already, but if you're a Berbers player and you like them, you can still make them work, right? You just have to be a little bit more cautious in the early game. Next up, we got the Bohemians. I think the Bohemians do very well in infantry meta because this Civ has a really good counter to infantry, which is just to play a very slow and defensive archer rush. So like you go up really fast and you play one range archers with a fast fletching because your blacksmith is cheap, and then you just play defensive and play a slow paced game. And then you also have hand cannoneer in Castlage that can do really well against infantry. Not that I think infantry will be meta in Castlage necessarily. You'll see more of it, but in Castlage you'll still see like crossbow knight dominate infantry. I see infantry as more like early game really strong, mid game a little weak but could be played, and then late game pretty strong again. That's kind of where I see infantry lying. So for me, Bohemians doing quite a good job at pushing away infantry rushes early on. I just worry a little bit about them getting caught up by some men-at-arms skirms. That could be really strong into Bohemians. So overall, I feel like Bohemians are, getting a little bit better because, it's better for them to defend against infantry in my opinion than against something like scouts into skirms. But I still think you can easily go scouts into skirms and do quite well against Bohemians. So I would put them probably in the subpar list, but still a very viable option if you like the Civ. Next up, we got Britons. Britons got a lot better on this new patch, a lot better. And one thing I want to mention, the new Arabia is one where there's a lot more woodlines. Like, gone are these Arabias, we have no woodlines, your whole map is a desert, it's wide open. Now, the new Arabia, you can actually wall up. So Britons get a lot better. It might be a bit early to say, but I would put Britons in the viable tier, I believe. Probably bottom of viable tier, but Britons are a lot better nowadays. So last patch, you had to open like scouts with Britons because infantry was not working, and opening archers on those open-ass Arabias was not really good. So you'd have to open like scouts, and that would just be so awkward. Like, the best play I found with Britons is to go scouts and spears, defend and attack or whatnot, and then try to get the lombos in Castlage after like 3TC booming. That was like the best play I've come up with. But on new patch, you can do all your openings are back on the table. You can go men at arms, you can go drush into fast feudal afterwards. You can maybe even drush fast castle if your map is really good. So Britons are really back on the menu, and I feel like your just opening archers play is still quite good if you have a nice map as well. So Britons are really back on the menu. It's not like the craziest Civ ever, but I think the infantry changes really benefits it, and it gives you a solid option in late game where you can actually play champion skirm with 1 extra range on your skirm, and the champion buffs. I think champion skirm is another composition that Britons can play. So you can play like longbow light cav, or like longbow halb, and you can also play or like arbalest halb, and you can also play champion skirm now, depending on the matchup. So it's pretty cool, pretty flexible Civ. I think it's gonna be solid. Next up, we got Bulgarians. This Civ was insta bad. Move on to the next one for like the last 2-3 years, especially at the end of the last patch. Like Bulgarians are just absolutely horrible. Everyone figured out how to beat them. Men at arms are doing nothing. Now Bulgarians are actually quite solid. I'm not going to overhype them and be like, yo, Bulgarians are so back. It's S tier. It's broken. Nothing can stop the 3-minute arm rush. Okay, let's keep it real. I think Bulgarians is one of the easiest civs to use in the new patch if you like the minute arm rush, because it's really easy to understand how to use it. You make 3-minute arms. You can even take 10 gold. You don't even have to make a mining camp. You have a 3-minute arm rush. Solid, standard, good opening. And then you can follow it up with skirms really easily. You can follow it up with scouts. You can follow it up with archers for a bit. You know, crossbow, but still, you can make a few archers if you want. So for me, Bulgarians are a solid civ. I would put them probably near the middle of B tier, maybe near the top of B tier. I'm going to put them right here above the Armenians for now, and we'll see where that takes us. I know it's absolutely crazy, but I feel like Bulgarians are quite solid on the new patch. Just because, like, for the main reason that now your men at arms, you don't lose them to one archer. And I talk about this in a lot of the men at arm videos, so you probably have heard this before. But Bulgarians getting really quick men at arms, pressuring, and then keeping them alive to follow up with units that get, you know, quick blacksmith upgrades. Now Bulgarians work. Now Bulgarians can pile up the pressure. Before, last patch, you make the men at arms. You're like, oh, I'm about to follow it up with skirms. They get cheaper fletching. Oh, my men at arms died to one archer. Oh. Okay, now I just have like 2-3 skirms with fast fletching, and my opponent has 1 scout left. Okay, I guess I'll just defend with these guys, and I'm dead, I guess. No eco bonus. GG. Now, look how awkward that sounds even. Now, your men at arms, you pressure, your opponent gets a couple of archers out, you run them around, they move the same speed as archers so they don't die, and then your skirm follow comes. All of a sudden you have 3 men at arms and like 2-3 skirms with fletching. That's so strong. So Bulgarians, it's not like the civ just got like it's just infantry buffs. Why are you ranking it so high? No, the civ actually functions now. It has the infantry pressure and then the follow-up, which is really strong. This is a proper civ now. If you guys can tell, I'm a huge fan of the new patch. And Bulgarians are now very, very well online. The Bulgarian copy-pasta guy was right. Next up, we have Burgundians. Burgundians is one of the losers of the new patch in terms of men-at-arms and infantry play, just because they are not the ones that want to play men-at-arm and infantry. They want to just pick up bowsaw and chill, usually. But they get the new Flemish militia in the barracks, which is okay. It's not bad. That unit is very spammable and it's very cheap, and it has its place, but I think that unit takes attack bonus, I know it takes attack bonus or extra damage from skirms, which is so wrong. It has the spearman armor class. For me, that's so wrong that unit takes bonus damage from skirmishers. So Burgundians are not doing anything crazy with the Flemish militia, in my opinion, and for that reason, I'm going to put it in a subpar category, probably below Bengalis, realistically. Really, at the subpar section, it's just preference. Like, if you like Bengalis more, pick them more. If you like Burgundians more, you pick them more. But that's the way I see them performing, at least in my hands. And I feel like Burgundians really just not that solid after the last patch. They will get abused by men-at-arms a lot as well. Next up, we got Burmese, men-at-arms civs that gets a little bit better. Not as good as Bulgarians as far as the buff goes. Just because the civ was already quite solid. But I think getting the bit axe for free while being able to play a solid infantry rush will make them very strong. I'll put them probably slightly behind Bulgarians, but both very similar in strength in my opinion. Next up, we got the Byzantines. I think the civ is completely fine in an infantry meta. It does suffer a little bit, but I like the I like the skirm opening with some tight walls against the infantry opening. And I feel like Byzantines with cataphracts in late game have always had a counter to infantry, so they're not really worried. But it is going to be a little harder to hold potentially some like all-in longswords and castle when you're not ready with cataphracts. So I think Byzantines get a little bit worse on the new patch, but not that much worse. I'll probably put them top of B tier. If it was up to me personally, I'd put them top of C tier. I'm not a huge fan of Byzantine, but they have a really high win rates, and a lot of people really like them. And I think, objectively speaking, they're quite good. So I'll probably put them here because I do feel like Byzantines have the right tools and options to beat out all of these civs with relative ease, but they're not quite the A tier civ that they once were, in my opinion. Next up with Celts, this is another civ that used to float around the bad category, but now, because of the new infantry changes, actually becomes really good. In an infantry versus infantry war, Celts are probably the best men-at-arms civ because you can actually outrun other men-at-arms, you can dictate the pace of the game. I'm going to put them top of C tier. I'm still not 100% convinced that Celts would be like a top tier civ. But I do love the fact that now it's a real civ again. Like for the longest time, it was this cheesy, either you FC all-in push with like a siege workshop, or you're going for like small feudal into like really fast up with the market into a siege push. And then if that doesn't work, you die. Now you still have those options if you want to, but you can just play with standard infantry openings now, and I think that's really cool. So I'm not going to overhype Celts and say that they're really good now, but I think that they're quite solid, and they might be the best men-at-arm opening civ in the game. So there is something that they do better than everyone else, which I like and I respect. This could be a bit higher in the future, but for now, I'll put it top of C. Next up, we got the Chinese. This is a civ that was considered the best of the old patch. I don't think that's the case anymore. I think the civ got a lot of changes that were very low-key. Number one, Scorpions got nerfed, and this is a Scorpion-based civ in a lot of cases. Number two, they lost Camels. That's a direct nerf to the civ. In exchange, they got Fire Lancers, but I'm not convinced that Fire Lancer is as good as Camels in the early to mid-game. I don't think they do the same thing, and I don't think they're as good. Also, the Fire Lancer fast castle rushes that are pretty solid, Chinese can't do them very well because your start doesn't like to do fast castle with Chinese. You don't like to do fast castle. You like to do more feudal age, stabilize, and then be up 2 vills. So they don't use Fire Lancers as good as Koreans do with the fast, fast castle all-in push with Fire Lancer that's quite strong. Chinese can't really do that very well. So in my opinion, Chinese are not using Fire Lancers that well, and they lost Camel. So this civ got hurt a little. But it's still a very solid Arabia civ, and I think the Chukanu's not needing rocketry makes them really good in Imp. And I think that the Fire Lancer, the Elite Fire Lancer, is very good in Imp. Okay? It's a very solid option in Imp as kind of like an anti-cavalry plus a solid front line. So I think Chinese get really good in Imp, but have a bit of a weaker mid-game. That's my take on them so far. I'm still going to put them top of A tier, but I'm not convinced they're overpowered. Okay? That's my take on them so far. And it could change. It needs more testing probably. But I've played a few games with and against Chinese so far, and this is kind of the feeling I get regarding the civ. Next up, we got Cumans. I think Cumans gets hurt a lot from the early game men-at-arms. I really think the civ will struggle a lot against that. 2TC Boom will be a lot harder to pull off. I'm going to save some time. I'm going to just drop them right here in the C tier. They're good if you like them. If you don't like them, don't bother with them. They're always tricky to play against them, but my recommendation against Cumans now is to open men-at-arms and really pressure them with maybe like a follow of archers, and then just try to go for castlage as fast as possible after that. So very fast pressure early, don't let them get a free 2TC boom, disturb them, then go up really fast to castlage and either castle drop them or go all in with some kind of knights or longswords or something like that. Probably knights, because longswords without a kip checks. But if you go knights, be careful of their camels. So I think Cumans can still win. If you're a good Cuman player, you'll still have some success. It's not like the civ is dead all of a sudden, but it does take a hit to early game infantry. And it's not doing too well against that. One thing to mention is that you might be able to open men-at-arms yourself with Cumans, pressure really hard, and then follow it up with a ramp push. That might be like a low-key strong Cuman all-in feudal age strategy. Don't sleep on that one. It's worth trying it out, especially if you like a fun strat. Next up, we got the Dravidians. This is another civ that I was usually hating on, but the civ actually got a lot better. As I've been mentioning on some of my videos recently, and I mentioned this on a Patreon video actually, but the men-at-arms skirm strategy is probably one of the best strategies of the new patch. It's very solid because against men-at-arms, you'll have only one option that's really good. It's usually archers, opening-wise. And if you go with really fast skirms after the men-at-arm rush, then you have a situation where archers don't really work to defend them, and men-at-arms skirm can now break buildings easily, harass villagers, and take care of archers quite easily. So Dravidians do men-at-arms skirm very well. One of the best civs at it. And their late game isn't half bad because they do get bombard cannons and champions got a huge buff. Urumi still suck, to be fair, but my advice for Dravidians is just stick to champions and the civ is quite good. I'm going to do something crazy, but I actually think it's top of B tier, maybe even bottom of A tier. I can't believe it. I'm going to put it top of B tier because I still think it has a weak castlage and a weak mid game, but it's actually a very strong civilization. I can imagine a world where you go men-at-arms skirm, and then you follow that up with longsword elite skirm. And this is going to have a lot of success, in my opinion. So if you like Dravidians, it's a good time to pick them up. And you don't always have to do that. You can go spear skirm forward. You can go spear skirm from home. You can even surprise your opponent and go scouts, and then transition to archers even if you want to. You can do a lot of things with Dravidians. But their men-at-arms skirm play will be the best for that civ. Next up, we have Ethiopians. Ethiopians get a lot better on the new patch because they are good against infantry, because they have a really fast uptime with archers, and they are good with infantry. So this civ gets a lot better in my opinion. but not like anything crazy. It's still the same Ethiopians that we know and love. I'll probably throw them right behind Byzantines, right? I feel like they're really good against some of the more generic men-at-arms civs, and the men-at-arms civs that have other weaknesses, like Burmese and Bulgarians, and like, Armenians and Britons, they're pretty good against these, although Britons is a bad matchup to be fair, but you get what I'm saying? But against the stronger men-at-arms civs like Dravidians, I think they could struggle, because men-at-arms skirm should still do quite well against Ethiopians, but I think Ethiopians in general will hold their own, will be a solid archer civ to pick up, and it doesn't have as many weaknesses as something like Britons, because its early game is a bit stronger. Its late game is not as strong as Britons, but they have extra siege options to kind of compensate that. So I think Ethiopians for me is a very solid choice. Next up, we got Franks. Franks for me is one of those civs that's always good, just because they get so many bonuses stacked in the early game. And I feel like this patch is a bit unchanged with how I feel about Franks. Like, I think Franks is still good. Their Scout Rush is probably one of the few Scout Rushes that can still deal with infantry. So you can still open Scouts most of your game. Or you can just open men-at-arms yourself and have men-at-arms with a really strong Scout, 54 HP starting Scout. It's also a pretty good option. I like the Franks quite a bit. I'm going to put them bottom of A tier. I think the civ is a really good beginner option on new patch still. You're not going to be playing with, you're not going to be playing with infantry, but you're going to be playing kind of like a civ that's good, that's just generically good. And your late game got a lot better because heavy scorpions now with ballistics are really good against infantry and just really good in general as an option. So you don't need to play only paladin. And if you're really, looking for a good Frank composition and you have like a lot of relics, like 4 or 5 relics or a lot of the gold on the map, you can go paladin plus heavy scorpion and that will destroy anything in late game. So yeah, Franks are quite solid. It's just like a generic, really good and easy to play civ. And I think it's going to be performing on new patch. CA meta is still kind of present, so you have to watch out for that. If you're Frank, CA is still popular despite the small inexistent nerf that they got. But besides that, I think Franks do quite well against most things, and they counter the men-at-arms skirm strat quite easily because you're going to be opening scouts most of the time, and I feel like the strong Frank scouts don't die to men-at-arms, so you'll be more or less fine. Next up, we got Georgians. I think this civ is still really strong, guys. I think this might be the only S tier civ on the new patch, but I'm not 100% sure about that. But it's S tier for a different reason. So they nerfed the healing on the scouts in early game, so I don't think the scout rush is that important for Georgians. I actually don't think you want to go scouts in all your games anymore like you used to. You still heal a bit, but the 2 HP per minute in Feudal Age is kind of ass. I'm going to be completely real. It's not very good. My take on Georgians, they're still S tier, but you have to play them differently. You don't have to open with scouts. You can open with whatever you want. It's still a very fast early game because you get the mule cart. And mule cart on Chickens Arabia is very good. So you take the chickens really early with the Georgians, and then you just transition the mule cart to wood later on. And it's very good to do something like that with the Georgians. So you get off to a good start. You're good on chickens because you're a mule cart civ. I should have mentioned that for Armenians. They get a bit better because of that as well. But the Georgians get really good, in my opinion, Cast Age onwards, because your healing is back to being decent, 8%, which is solid. Not like 10 from last patch, but still solid. Your CA are still online. You're still Georgians. You're like, they didn't really get nerfed for Castle Age onwards very much, so you're still Georgians. You got your churches. You still have a really good start on both chicken and normal Arabia with deer. Against men-at-arms, you're not weak because you up really fast because of your early game. So you can open archers if you want really, really quickly, and you don't die to men-at-arms at all. You also could open men-at-arms yourself. There's no reason not to. And your Menaspa are still quite strong. I don't think Menaspa are like that OP like they used to. They got nerfed a couple patches ago, but still a strong unit. And you have Halb, SO, you have Hand Cannoneer, you have Siege Engineers, you have Svan Towers that are very good. You have so many options with Georgians. You have Hussar spam that's still solid. You have skirms that are really solid. You basically just don't miss anything with Georgians, but they're not as brain dead face roll scout opening like they used to be in last patch. So be a bit smarter with Georgians in your opening, but once you get the cast stage, the civ is still just as online as it always is. Next up, we got the Goths. The Goths are really good right now. I think the Goths are super solid. I'm gonna put them probably right here in B tier. This civ used to be like a C tier or even a D tier civ last patch, but now Men-at-Arm Rush super solid with the Goths. They got tuned down a little on their discount, but your militia are still overall cheaper on the food count now compared to before in the early game. And I think that Goths having champions being stronger is good. The one thing to note though is that infantry being better across the board is kind of bad for Goths, because against Goths, what you need is usually champion plus a ranged unit that can kill Goth champion. And enemy champions or other Civ champions got better with this last patch. So Goths aren't going to be S tier just because infantry is good. You have to think a bit. You have to realize, shit, infantry is good across the board. Goths get better, but other Civs get better against Goths. My take is that Goths get enough better to be a viable Civ because the men-at-arm opening is now very good with Goths. And they don't have to follow up into skirms. They can do skirms, they can do archers, they can do scout follow-up, they can do more men-at-arm follow-up, they can go, just like men-at-arm plus, fast blacksmith infantry armor if you want. You can do so many things with Goths, I feel like. And then you have the husk scroll that's always been strong from the castle and the castle age onwards. And you have like really good options in general. Next up, we got the Gurjaras. I think this Civ is a bit weak into the infantry plays just because your mill is usually quite exposed. And I could see a world where enemy opening men-at-arm can easily pressure your mill and take out your sheep, and that could be annoying. But I think Gurjaras opening fast archers can be a nice counter to that at the same time. I think this Civ is okay. If you like Gurjaras, pick them. If you don't like them, just stay away from them. I'll probably put them something like here. Yeah, it's not the craziest Civ, but like if you like them, they're going to be really good. And you just have to play a smart and safe opening to make them not die so hard to men-at-arm rushes. Next up, we got the Hindustani. It's a better version of the Gurjaras overall, in my opinion. They're not that similar, but in my opinion, Hindustani are a very good Civ. It's one of the Civs like Franks that can up really fast and can take care of a lot of the men-at-arm rushes, which is going archers and scouts. And Hindustani can also open men-at-arm and infantry itself perfectly fine. I think Hindustani is one of the better Civs in the game right now. I'm just trying to figure out where I'd place them. And I think I'd probably place them above the Chinese. This is probably in A tier strong. And I say that because in Imp, you're not scared of infantry at all. You have Gulam that takes care of like the lighter infantry like eagles and such. And then you have Hen Cannoneer that takes care of the slow-paced infantry, like let's say Jaguar Warrior or let's say Champion, right? So Hindustani have the tools to deal with the meta, and then they also have their own tools like fully upgraded Hussar, Imp Camel that's really strong. You have, siege engineers, you have strong monks, you have everything you need to tackle the meta. I wouldn't even be surprised if it's an S tier Civ. Maybe by the end of the tier list, I do bump it to S tier, to be fair. It's a very, very good Civ at the moment. Next up, we have Huns. I think Huns get a lot worse in this meta. I think its Civ is okay, and I'd probably put it top of C tier, maybe below Celts even, because I think it's still a good Civ if you like what Huns are good, are good for. But I just struggle to see how meta-arms is gonna, or like Huns is gonna be able to deal with meta-arm skirm opening and get out ahead. You're gonna be like, if anything, equal in early game, and then Hun mid game is okay, it's solid, but nothing too special. I just feel like Huns playing with Cav and CA are really good, but if you can't get to that kind of game, then Huns are really not that special at all. I think Tarkin's got a small buff on the last patch, or a decent sized buff. They attack faster now, so that's decent, but I still kind of class Huns as a subpar Civ where you only play it if you love the Huns. If not, just stay away from it. But if you love them, they should still be pretty good. Next up, we have the Incas. This is another Civ that gets a lot better on recent patch because Men-at-Arms Skirm is now so on the table, and Eagles got buffed. So Incas, like the Aztecs, will be in a top tier. I think Aztecs is slightly better because of Jaguar Warriors. And it sounds so crazy. It sounds like I'm joking. Like, if I said that 2 months ago, everyone's be like, haha, Hera is such a troll. Wow, it's so funny. But Jaguar Warriors are no joke now. They're actually really good. So I think Aztecs are a bit better for that reason. But Incas still have all the tools they've always had. Discount on, militia being super cheap early game. That's really good. Actually, that's really good. Discounted militia, that's kind of insane. And then discounted skirms. Wait, Incas might actually be better than Aztecs. I think you also get Gambus and Champions. I'm not sure though. It's really close. It's really close. Like, they're both very similar, but I think Incas might be better actually, because I think the Jags are really good, which is my initial reasoning. But now that I'm thinking about it a bit more, I think the discount on Skirm and the discount on the infantry in early game should make Incas a bit better. Might even be better than Chinese. Yeah, I think the Civ might actually be better than Chinese, but it's hard to say. I'm going to put it here. I'm going to be conservative because I still think the Chinese are very solid for the reasons I mentioned earlier. We'll put Incas there for now, but both Incas and Aztecs are very similar and very strong. And you just go with which one you like more if you want to decide which one you want to play. Next up, we got the Italians. The Italians got a nice couple buffs. So They got a new unique tech that gives the gunpowder pass-through damage. I've tried it in a 4v4 Black Forest game. Felt pretty good, but nothing broken, because it just does like 3 or 4 damage pass-through. It's not like it's ripping 17 damage pass-through. It's just 3 or 4 damage, I think. Nothing crazy, but not bad kind of thing. So I think their gunpowder play is okay. It's good, but not overpowered. And they got a new bonus in their archers that gives them their archers +1/+1 in the early game, like just fresh at the gate. Everyone thinks this is really strong. I'm not buying it. I think the archers would be amazing against scouts now and against, men-at-arms. But their archers won't be any better against skirms. They'll take exactly 1 less damage to skirms, but skirms are already hitting them for something like 6 or 7 damage, or like 5 to 6 damage. So taking 1 less damage is not the craziest deal. It's still not bad, but I wouldn't overhype that bonus. But again, it's substantial. So I think Italians are probably going to be somewhere in the B tier, where they're good, solid, but not crazy. I'd probably put them around where Biz are. I prefer them more to Byzantine, so I'll probably put them here. And I think they might... No, I think they're here. I think Goths are honestly better. Like, Men-at-Arms Skirm into Huskrow will destroy Italians, for example. So I just feel like Italians are solid right around here. Next up, we got the Japanese. Similar to Goths and Dravidians, Japanese are so much more playable now. But I would say it's still probably falling more into the category of something like an infantry civ that kind of struggles against some other civs, especially in late game. It has some weaknesses. Like Goths and Dravidians have a much better late game than Japanese, but I think Japanese are really good on Chicken Arabia. So as a main civ to use on 1v1 ladder, Japanese are now probably somewhere in the B tier. You still have CA play that's very solid. You still have Archer and Arbalest play that's really solid. Tower play, Catapulto Trebs, all still really solid options. But you still suffer from some of the Japanese weaknesses, like no +4 armor on Cav, no Hussar, and no Bombard Cannon. So you're going to be kind of weak in certain aspects of late game. But your early game got a lot better. Japanese men-at-armor now probably one of the best in early game fights, and probably one of the few civs that can actually make longswords and castle work. And it's worth mentioning the new samurai are actually quite solid. I tested them in a team game, actually in a 2v4, and they destroyed everything. They were so strong. I think that video is up on YouTube by this point, if you guys want to check it out. But yeah, Japanese are they're quite a cats. Come on, they're quite a solid civ in my opinion. They got a lot better on this new patch. They were useless last patch, but now they're definitely a threat. Next up we got Khmer. Khmer is one of those civs that gets a lot better just because other people are doing infantry. Like this civ, in my opinion, will be the second S tier civ, which is crazy because they don't do men-at-arms themselves. But other people doing men-at-arms makes Khmer way better. You have the houses to protect yourself early against them. You have a really fast opening because you don't need the barracks. You can go very fast archers or scouts if you want to. Your farming is insane. And your late game with the new Scorpions having ballistics is ridiculous. It's so freaking good. Ballista elephants are also really strong. They got nerfed a bit, but still probably quite strong. I think Khmer is probably one of the best civs in the game now. This feels good. These two civs don't play men-at-arms necessarily. This one can. This one usually doesn't want to, but could if it wants to make the barracks, but I don't recommend it. But they do so well into what other people will do. Like, for example, Men-at-Arms Skirm will not do that well against Khmer because you have the house hopping, so you don't die to the initial Men-at-Arm, and then you have really good farming. So you open archers, defend the Men-at-Arm, house hopping, you lose no vills, and then you bring out scouts to deal with the skirmishers, and you have archer scout, and that should be okay considering how strong Khmer are in feudal age. And then your late game is also really solid. So Khmer have some weaknesses, but I think they're a really strong civ. And one thing to note, some of the civs that used to beat Khmer, like Chinese, they've lost camel. So Chinese will get eaten in Imp by the Khmer Heavy Scorpion now. You have to keep these in mind, right? Chinese used to beat Khmer. Now I think Khmer eats Chinese in Imp. Not like Chinese will lose every time, but Khmer has that tool in its arsenal, which is nice. So Khmer gets a lot better, indirectly. Next up, we got the Koreans. I think the Korean Fire Lancer Siege Rush, Fire Lancer Rocket Cart Rush is insane. Oh, I forgot to talk about that. Chinese get rocket carts, but I think rocket carts are not that insane. I think they're only good in early Castle Age, which is what I'm going to talk about right now. But otherwise, they function more or less like a Maginot. I will say elite rocket carts are way better than Onager, though. So Chinese get better in Imp with their Siege. So elite rocket cart is like better than Onager, but weaker than a Siege Onager, okay? So it's worth mentioning that. And I'm mentioning that now because we got the Koreans. Now, I think the Fire Lancer plus Rocket Cart all-in push like the phosphor style, will be insanely strong. Like, I'm so sorry in advance. That strat will be so hard to deal with. I believe. But besides that, I don't think Koreans are necessarily that good. I think the Fire Lancers being discounted makes them the best Fire Lancer civ though, because they're so cheap on the wood cost, only 20. But their Siege Onager got nerfed. Their Elite Rocket Cart is not as strong, or the Heavy Rocket Cart not as strong. But overall, I think Koreans are still in a pretty good spot. It's the civ that, like I said, utilizes Fire Lancers the best. I would place the civ in the B tier somewhere. Probably somewhere, yeah, probably somewhere here. I still don't see it beating Bulgarians and Burmese. I'll put it here, but it could get here if that fast castle rush is actually insane, like I think it is. So it could be an insane civ, but besides that rush, I think it's right around here. Pretty good civ, not the best versus meta arm early game, but has some tools and has a pretty good mid-late game. All right, gets better the more Fire Lancers sees play, I suppose. Lithuanians. This civ, pretty good against infantry opening because it ups really fast. Its skirmishers are very solid, so you're going to really control the game with Lithuanians. You probably don't want to open scouts as often with Lithuanians anymore. I think Skirm Spear opening would be better against meta-arms, or opening meta-arms yourself with a really fast uptime will be the new best strat. I think Lithuanians are quite solid. Somewhere in the B tier, I'm not feeling like they're A tier, but I think they're quite solid. I'd probably prefer them to a lot of these civs, to be honest. I'm going to put them top of B tier, just because I think their their faster moving skirms will dominate a lot of the meta-arm skirm civs. That's the reason why the civ is here, in my opinion. And it could deserve a spot in bottom of A as well. I'm not sure. For now, I'll put them right here in the B tier. You know what? Actually, I'm going to bump this up because we got a lot in the B tier. So let me bump up Lithuanians to A tier. I do feel like it's consistently going to beat these meta-arm civs. Because those fast-moving skirms are no joke. So definitely don't sleep on those guys. Okay, moving on now to Magyars. Has to be another B tier civ. Probably slightly ahead of Koreans. Like, I think it's not bad. I think Magyar scouts also, like Franks, do really well into the early game rushes, but you're gonna have to go like into fast range, which will be awkward. But I think meta arms with Magyars, or militia with Magyars, are also quite good. So Magyars are probably just a strong, flexible option on the new patch, but nothing too insane. Maybe they're better than Burmese and maybe than Bulgarians, but I think you're splitting hairs. I'd probably still prefer Burmese in a lot of cases. So I'm gonna put them right here, but it could be anywhere in the mid tier. I still see Magyars as a solid scout-based civ that can also play infantry and meta-arm opening quite easily and can have a really good late game. And its mid-game is solid as well. So it's like an overall pretty good civ with a solid aggressive opening. Downside being no eco bonus and no bomber cannon and no good monk play. Next up we got Malay, which is currently the highest win rate civ on the ranked ladder. And that's probably because of how strong its infantry opening is. Meta-arms with extra armor are incredibly hard to deal with straight out the gate. Malay is not the best meta-arm civ as far as economy goes, but their units with free armor are very, very strong. I personally see Malay as an A tier civ. I'm not buying that it's an S tier civ so far. I think it's an S tier civ on hybrid maps, but not on Arabia Pure. I would probably put it somewhere around here. Maybe better than the Meso package, or maybe a bit worse. It's hard to say. I think the Karambits getting extra armor out the gate is very good in a lot of cases as well. And I think the faster uptime has always been good. Elephants did get buffed on a recent patch. They're more resistant to conversion, so that's worth mentioning. Overall, I think we're splitting hairs here, but I'd probably put Malay here and be satisfied with it. I feel like the Meso would perform a bit better than Malay overall, but Malay probably beats the Meso is kind of what I'm feeling. Next up, we got the Malians. Pretty good civ. Not a winner from the recent patch. Didn't really get affected too much, but it's a civ that likes to do meta-arms. And the meta-arms with extra pierce armor are really good into enemy skirms, because even if they get fletching, they still only take 1 damage, so that's quite nice. Didn't get any direct buffs, I believe, so just kind of piggybacking off those infantry changes. Champions now a lot more viable for the Malians, because they have really strong pierce armor, but now they move faster with an extra attack, which is kind of nice. You're going to have 14 plus 2 attack champions, which is solid. I don't know. I like the Malians. I think they're a pretty good civ. I'd probably put them right here in top of B tier if I had to really guess. It's not, yeah, maybe even bottom of A tier. You know what? I'd put it bottom of A tier. I think it's always been a good civ, but now its meta arm rush is even scarier. It's more dangerous. That's quite nice. And I think it's one of the few civs that can also go longswords and castle. So Yeah, Malians probably get a lot better on this new patch now that I'm thinking about it. Not directly, but again, indirectly, you have to factor these different things. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with bottom of A tier. It performs like that in most of my games. Next up, we have Mayans, and I have to throw the Civ in S tier despite it getting a lot worse on new patch because of what people are playing. So like Khmer got way better because of what others are playing. Because like Men at Arms Skirm doesn't do very well against Khmer. Men at Arms Skirm does very well against Mayans, but I think that Archer plus Eagle opening is good enough. Hello, cats. What's up? Oh, you don't wanna. You're not very friendly. I think the Archer plus Eagle opening from Mayans is probably enough with how good of its economy is to still defend. I'm almost certain. I haven't tested enough to say for sure, but I have a strong suspicion that Mayans will still be one of the best civs and definitely the best meso, despite other mesos probably being good in the meso mirror and the meso matchups. But like, for example, Mayans should have a really good time against most civilizations that are like even... They're going to have a hard time getting out of the early game like Japanese Goths and whatnot, but I think they have a really good time against most civs that are not playing Men-at-Arms Skirm and can probably beat the Men-at-Arms Skirm civs with crossbow eagle compositions. At least I think. So stay tuned, but I think Mayans are still very strong, and the Plumed Archer is really good in infantry meta anyway, because Plumed Archer is a counter to infantry. The one danger though is that Mayans die pretty hard to Goths, unless you beat them early on, which will probably be a lot harder on this new patch. So this is maybe a bit copium, maybe it should be a bit lower, but I believe, at least the way I think of Mayans, it should still be an S tier civ, but definitely the last place in S tier. Mongols. Hey, Hera, Mongols got a lot worse because there's chickens, right? Right? Turns out, I don't think so. I was one of those people saying Mongols will get a lot worse. That was me. I said that as well. People said that to me. I said it. A lot of people said it. I don't think so. And I'll tell you why. Mongols are a damn good laming civ. If there's Chicken Arabia, they're going to find out within the first 10 seconds, send their scouts flying forward like it's Gandalf running, you know, for on the fastest horse that I forgot the name. And they're going to sprint straight to your boar, snag that back. And if a Mongol player is on my Patreon, they will use the fast Chickens Mill build order that I just put out and that I love. And they don't have a bad start after all. Actually, Mongols are still really good. I think it's the best civ in the game. I actually think it's the best civ in the game right now. It's so crazy. But Mongols is really good into men-at-arms because it can go really fast archers or it can go really fast scouts into archers. And it can go really fast men-at-arms itself. Like, I can't believe it that like you think Mongols are nerfed, but they're actually still the best civ. I feel so bad because I thought the Mongol pickers would be nerfed with this chicken stuff, but it's not the case. I have to be honest. If you go for the fast chickens builder and you go for the lame, I think Mongols, there's no way they're not S tier, honestly. There's no way they're not. And on the Deer Arabia, they're just as good as they've always been. Like CA got nerfed a little bit, like they're 3 seconds slower to make, but they're still strong. Mangadai are still insane. All the Mongol units are really good against infantry. Like Steppe Lancer is really good against infantry. CA really good against infantry. Their really fast opening is really good against infantry. So if you notice the pattern, the infantry civs are really strong, but then the civs that are really good against infantry are like the top. Like these 3 are really good into infantry. Mayans are one of the civs that doesn't do well against infantry necessarily, but its units and its economy are still probably enough to survive the early game. And then you have the really good Mayans mid game, which I think is really solid still. But these 3 civs are really good into infantry. Mongols being the absolute best against infantry openings, and it's also really good with infantry openings itself. Sorry guys, Mongols still top tier, which is crazy to say. Oh, actually another thing, Mongols used to have trouble with Chinese because Chinese got camels. Now Chinese don't get camels, and I think fire lances for Chinese are kind of fake until late game. So I think Mongols actually should win that matchup now, if you play it smart. Next up we have Persians. Ooh, Persians. I think probably the civ is really good, but it's not that special. It's just like a good overall civ. It reminds me a bit of Franks, but it has a bit of a weaker early game. Probably bottom of A tier makes sense for Persians. Yeah, this is a civ that could die to men-at-arm early, but it has a good early game because it gets the extra res, and it's usually up a villa from Dark Age. It's a civ that can also play men-at-arms very fine. It's just an overall good civ that has solid options across the board. Its only weakness is that no bracer late game and no siege engineers and no good monks. Like its late game's a bit weak in some aspects, but Savar are still insane. So I feel like the civ is just an overall good civ, but not an infantry-based civ. Next up, we got Poles. Oh, that one is actually not the best at the moment. It dies really hard to meta arm rushes. Yeah, I don't like the Poles right now. It dies really hard to meta arm openings. It's going to have a lot of trouble. I think Poles, it might even be in the bad category, but out of respect to what they once were. No, I'm kidding. But I think they're still good enough if you play them like solid and if you can have a good map and you can wall early. So like only pick Poles if you like them. If you don't like Poles, you will be miserable on the new patch. It might actually be a bad civ. Like it's objectively kind of a bad civ. It doesn't do infantry opening well. I think it's objectively a bad civ. Unless something crazy changes with Poles, I think it's objectively a bad civ, but not unplayable. Okay? So it's objectively a bad civ in the new patch. You're gonna have to do some weird stuff like tower defense or something to survive. But like having to do weird stuff every game just to survive these like imagine like Celt is meta arm rushing you or Goths met like 4 meta arms into archers and you're just Poles trying to get your 3 full works down or like your 3 farms on your full work down. Like it's gonna be a disaster. And this civ really only comes online mid feudal age. Or like even late feudal age, early castle. And even then early castle it's still weak. It has a really good late game, like probably the best late game in the game, but I just struggle how you're gonna get there in most games. All right, so only play Poles if you're good at them. Next up, we got Portuguese. This civ is actually okay at everything and can play meta arms opening itself quite well, but it's nothing too special. And you have to watch out. Your berry bonus is nice, but if you get pressured off your berries, you'll be very sad as the Portuguese. So I think Portuguese are very, very strong, but probably somewhere in the A tier and not in the S tier like they might have once been. I would comfortably put them right here. I think that's a perfect spot for them. I'm quite happy with them being there. They have good options, like archers and scouts have always been good. Meta arm and militia are always good options with them early game. You can even play skirms in feudal because you have a nice berry bonus giving you extra wood, so it feels nice to play meta arm into skirm, for example. And then in castle age, everything's online. Just play gold units like knights, CA, arbalest, gunpowder. You have so many good options in in castle age, and then in early imp onwards, your civ becomes truly online. And it's one of the only civs that can get infinite gold in 1v1 via Fitteria. So even in late imp, you can still play your beloved gold units. So in my opinion, it's a very strong civ. Not necessarily good in today's meta, but not bad in today's meta. And might only be in trouble if it gets pressured really hard early by either meta arm skirm or like spear skirm. Those rushes are usually quite good against Portuguese. But otherwise, it's still a really solid civ. Next up, we have the Romans. This civ I played it in like a meta arm based map in some show match or tournament, and I played against it. It was absolutely insane. This civ is bonkers S tier, maybe like S plus tier if it's infantry opening or a map where you're very close quarters. It's literally S plus. On a map like Arabia where you're not necessarily that close and you have time to react, I think the civ is not that good, but still really solid. So I don't know if to take a risk and place it in S tier and say like the civ is really good now. I don't think we're there yet, but I think the meta arm rush with the +2 armor is incredibly strong. I think it's a very good opening, but probably not good enough to be placed in the OP category. So I'm feeling like I'm going to place it just above the Portuguese. But keep in mind, on an infantry-based map where you're very close to your opponent and there's maybe shortfish on the map, S tier. In Arabia, probably somewhere like A tier. Scorpions are still really strong. Despite them getting nerfed, it's still like viable. And I think your infantry is absolutely insane now. Like your opening is just going to be off the charts. I would open meta arms with Romans pretty much every game. I don't see a reason not to do that. You don't always have to go armor, but you always have it in your back pocket. And it's one of the few civs that can go longswords in Castlage and have a lot of success with that. And low elo, Romans would be very freaking good. Maybe even S tier for low elo, for beginners. Okay, pretty happy with that. Also, Centurion are also really good if you can get there. And always mix a Centurion with your infantry army if you can. Legionaries, people think Romans are not that good because Legionaries didn't get buffed, but Champions got buffed from other civs. For me, legionaries are still really good in imp, so don't worry about that so much. And the Roman early game getting much better is where you should be focused on. Because if you have a good early game with the Civ, legionaries are good enough that they'll still carry you in late game. You don't have to worry about other people's champions getting better. The grass is always greener, but in the case of Romans, your grass is pretty damn green anyways. Next up, Saracens. Ooh, Saracens got a lot weaker the last couple patches. Your market got hit quite a bit. Infantry does not serve the Saracens very well. I think Saracens are one of those civs that's going to be actually in the subpar category. A lot of what Saracens are usually good for is just not that good in this patch. So I think it's going to be like a defensive opener and trying to hold the meta arm rush. There might be some ways where you can go meta arms yourself and use the market to get a really aggressive start. But I think with the market getting nerfed quite heavily on a couple patches ago and food being expensive, I just feel like Saracens aren't going to get the best start anymore. Still playable if you like the Saracens, but I'm not feeling them too much on the new patch. Next up, we got the Sicilians. I think Sicilians got a decent change, but I'm not feeling them that much still. I think the Civ is still kind of subpar. I wouldn't say it's bad. I think the donjon opening is really good, and I think the donjon rushing is quite good. But Sergeant losing Pierce armor in Feudal and Castle is kind of a big deal. Makes archers way too good against them, in my opinion. So I'm not feeling the Sicilians. I think the Civ is still pretty bad. I'd probably even put them... I'd probably put Saracens behind Celts, but I'm not sure about that. I think Celts will have more success than Saracens on this patch. And I'll put Sicilians behind both. Probably even behind Huns, realistically. Like I said, Civ is still good in some ways. The donjon opening makes them a lot better. The fact that you can make a donjon in Feudal Age. Your sergeants are still solid, but not as strong as they were before, because that pierce armor is really important. And overall, your Civ doesn't really do much else besides that. Your economy is still good overall. I think it's an okay Civ. Again, it's subpar, but it's okay. Next up, we got Slavs, and this feels like it's a solid Civ now. I would probably put it somewhere in the B tier. I don't know where exactly, but I like the Slavs. The arson for free is kind of solid. I like that quite a bit, actually. And I like the fact that you get Gambesons for free as well in Castle Age. But I don't know. I don't think that the Slavic meta arm rush is that good. Like, Japanese have a better one. I think they're probably somewhere in this gang. Maybe slightly better than Ethiopians. Maybe slightly better than Byzantines, but that's debatable. Maybe slightly better than Italians. I probably put them right here. I think this is kind of where the Slavs feel. Their meta arm rush is solid. You can still open scouts and skirms very easily. You want to play with food-based units because your early game is really good with the farms, and it scales really nicely into the mid-game where you're playing with either longswords or knights or light cav or something like that. And then you want to support that with siege and monk. That's like your general game plan with the Slavs. And then late game, still same game plan: food frontline, siege monk backline. Simple as that. And Slavs are pretty good at that. So I don't know, it's a pretty good Civ, but it doesn't feel like it's like broken in any way. But the free arson is quite nice. Next up, we got the Spanish. This is one of the weaker Civs on the new patch. Actually, it got a lot weaker because meta arm opening will really hurt the Spanish. It's a Civ that just wants to survive. I think it's probably somewhere like right here. I think it's a bit better than Sicilians, but Huns and Saracens will still perform better. These three Civs are not good on new patch because they're just not good at like doing the new patch stuff, like infantry and skirm and whatnot. I think Huns is better than Saracens as well, now that I'm thinking about it. But I feel like Spanish is the worst because on its own, Spanish is just a worse version of these. If anything, Berbers is even better than Spanish, now that I'm really thinking about it. So I might even throw Spanish back here with this gang, which is really, these Civs, only pick them if you like playing them, is my advice. There's one thing to consider, though, that Spanish have good infantry themselves. Not for an opening. Their infantry opening is decent because the techs that you get give you gold. So you might be able to do, like, meta arms. I was going to say without making a mining camp, but even then you have to wait for double bid axe. Yeah, it's weird. You might be able to do a 3 militia drush without taking gold, but that's like, it's whatever. One thing to note, though, is that you do get fully upgraded champions, so your late game does get better because champions are better, but it's really just not that good of a Civ at the moment. And on new patch specifically, it gets a lot worse. So yeah, not a good day for the Spanish. Next up, we got the Tatars. This was an 8-tier Civ on old patch. On new patch, I don't think it's all that special. It's still okay, but it reminds me more of like a solid B-tier Civ, like right above Magyars. It's better than Burmese, and it's probably better than Bulgarians. but it probably doesn't do much more than that. That's Teutons. Probably doesn't do much more than that. So probably right here is where I'd class the Tatars. I still feel like the Civ works for what it wants to do, which is archers and scouts. And I think it could open men-at-arms and drush if it wants to, but it does not have good infantry long term. And it doesn't have the craziest and strongest opening. So not feeling the Tatars too much, but it's still not a bad option. Next up, we got the Teutons. Teutons got a lot better on the new patch. I absolutely love the Teutons on new patch. I think they're a B tier civ now. I wouldn't put them much higher. But I think something like right near this gang of Burmese and Bulgarians is where I'd class the Teutons. Because if you open men-at-arms with them, you now have a legit threat. Because you can pressure with men-at-arms skirm, and you can farm behind, and you don't have to be in this game where you're opening scouts, and your opponent's going scouts, and then, oh, CA is just the best choice now. Because scout wars or scout war, and everyone wants to go CA versus Teutons after that. Which is always awkward. Now you can open men-at-arms skirm, and your opponent doesn't have this easy, almost a highway route to CA. They have to think about it a bit more. They can still play it, but they got your skirms and men-at-arms to think about in early game before they get there. So Teutons got a lot better. Also, Teutonic Knights are legit now. Longswords and Castle can be legit if you're up against melee units. Yeah, quite a solid civ overall, honestly. Teutons came a lot better after this new patch. Next up, we got Turks, one of the biggest losers of the new patch, in my opinion. Does not do well against against men-at-arm opening at all. It's probably just a bit better than Spanish just because it has better options. But I would probably prefer Berbers over it because Berbers have a way better mid-game. And Turks were really good in the scouts for scouts meta, or like in the really slow-paced early game into like a fast imp, or into like light cap relic control, or into CA to control the game. But in aggressive, like early game fights, Turks are really not that good. And if you're forced to invest into skirms, you don't get elite skirm, which sucks. So I think Turks are in a pretty bad spot at the moment. Next up, we got Vietnamese. A civ that should do quite well in the early game because they're extra HP skirms. I think that's going to be huge. But I wouldn't say it's going to do that well. I think a civ is good. Probably bottom of A tier somewhere. Like, I'd probably put them slightly above Persians or slightly behind Persians. Yeah, maybe right here. They're not as good as these four civs as far as early game. So these four civs will get off to a better start, meaning they defend against men-at-arm rushes much better. Vietnamese will have a bit more trouble, but I think your early game is still good enough to where you should be able to defend against the men-at-arm rushes. Notice that the men-at-arm civs are not usually getting higher up, but that's because men-at-arm civs always have some inherent weakness in late game. So like something like Japanese, Goths, Dravidians, although they're very, very good, they always have other inherent weaknesses that other civs don't have. And I feel like the men-at-arm rush is not strong enough to where you always win going for it. And if you have a civ that's really good at men-at-arm rushing, it's predictable. So if other civs that are stronger overall just defend the men-at-arm rush, all of a sudden Dravidian, Goths, and Japanese, for example, will not be as strong. After the initial rush. So that's why the men-at-arm rush, although I'm really hyping up infantry, I think civs that defend against infantry rushes are actually probably going to be better than the infantry rush civs themselves. That being said, infantry rushing civs went from like D, C tier up to like top of B tier. So it's still a huge spike for them. Which brings me to my last infantry-based civ, the Vikings, which get a lot freaking better. I think this is probably the infantry civ that's going to make it to A tier, kind of up with Romans, Malay, Aztecs, and Incas. Probably somewhere like this, where they're a bit better than Romans for 1v1 Arabia, because their economy will carry them. And don't waste too much time with Berserks and Imp. They're good if you need them, but I think the champions will just be better in most cases. So I would recommend champions and Imp, and for opening, you can do literally whatever you want, but infantry openings with Vikings will be better. Which brings me to my final point in the video. Civs like Vikings always had to do something like, I don't know, something stupid like they have to open scouts or like archers, because infantry openings sucked, but they kind of wanted to play like a food-based opening so they can farm fast. They just go scouts, but Viking scouts are nothing special. Now you can open infantry, and then you can get your farms down, or you can still open scouts if you want to surprise your opponent, or if it's a really good scout matchup. So you have way more options with these infantry civs, which I absolutely love about the new patch. And looking at this is probably the objectively correct list. I could drop Britons to top of C tier just to make it clean, like one line and everything. And I think we'll do that because I do feel like the civs up here are slightly better than Britons. So this feels fair to me. So we'll leave it at that. that's my tier list. I'm pretty happy with it. I'm so sorry for Poles to be just by themselves down there in the bad category, but I'm just being honest. They will suffer a lot with the new patch. I'm closer to sending Burgundians down there, but Burgundians at least have the Flemish militia to help defend against men-at-arm rushes. Poles have nothing. They have a full work militia to defend against men-at-arm rushes. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm pretty happy with this tier list. I took a lot of time thinking about it. I took 10 days where I played a lot of ladder games to come up with this kind of ranking, get some experience on the ranked ladder myself. And yeah, that's pretty much it for my tier list. Let me know in the comments below if you agree or disagree for anything. Check out my Patreon if you want to learn how to dominate the new patch. I have so many guides on Patreon, guys. I have, by the point this video's uploaded, I'll probably have how to do the men-at-arms skirm rush, how to do an opening on Chickens Arabia, the fast chickens, which is really good. You'll have to see the information there. I have a video on chickens to explain how to play the Chickens Arabia, and then I also have a how to beat men-at-arm opening consistently video. And those 4 videos will be a huge help for you guys to dominate the new patch, as well as all the other Patreon content. So if you're interested, check me out on Patreon. It's also a really good way to support me. Link down below, and check out the live stream on Twitch. Link also down below. Thanks for watching the video, guys. Much love. Thanks for sticking by me for the longer video, for the hour-long video, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.